So we arrived here in the city of Ouro Preto do Oeste back in 2012 to do our first official church plant. We had arrived in Brazil at the very end of 2009 and had to learn the language, had to learn the culture. I was able to take care of one missionary's church for 1 year as his wife wasn't doing well physically, had to return to the States to get some care. But when we arrived in the middle of 2012, we came to the north of the country. It's the northern region, not the furthest north part of the country, but in the region called the north. And we were planning to go to a certain city, which is the capital of this state, but that just wasn't really where we believe we ought to be. And so we traveled from that city by car several hours south to visit many of the cities along the, what we could call the Brazilian interstate. And this is definitely a different area than where we had originally come to learn a language, down in the southern part of Brazil, in the city of São Paulo. Here it's very warm. We're inside the Amazon jungle. It's been carved out, so you can see pieces of the jungle here and there, but it's really not what you would expect when you think about National Geographic. What has happened is about 30 or so years ago, 40, 50 years ago, people began to move into this area for lumber, for rubber trees, and just different things like that, trying to make a living. Many people escaped problems. They lived in other parts of the country, and this was a new territory. It wasn't even a state. And the people we work with now are the children and grandchildren of those settlers. And many of those settlers are still here, but it's really their children and grandchildren that we're having the most contact with. Well, we finally chose this city of Ouro Preto. We liked it, and there were no independent Baptist works in it. The city north of it, there are no independent Baptist works. To the city south of it, there is one work that has been begun, and that's about 40 minutes away. So really, we've come to where there's no independent Baptist works. That doesn't mean there aren't churches here. It just means that churches like ours aren't here. However, I need to add something to that. When you look at the churches and you meet the people in this area, the great majority of these churches are very far from a gospel preaching work. These churches are heavily charismatic to the point where miracles and prosperity are the goal. And when we first arrived, we would go door knocking, soul winning, visiting all over the town, about 40,000 people here, and we couldn't find anybody who was sure they were saved or who could tell us how to get saved. And it was amazing to see so many churches, so many people, and some of these churches, they have service every night of the week. And it was amazing to me to see so many people who had no knowledge of the gospel. To them, it was just about working real hard to be religious, to hopefully one day make it. And the people here are very religious. A very high percentage of Brazilians, I think it's like 95 or 97%, believe there is a God. So atheism is very minimal, especially in a part of the country like this, which is much more rural. The belief in God is much higher. But when you get to know the people, they're very friendly people. They're willing to talk to you. They love Americans. But there is an amount of spiritual darkness here that is just hard to fathom. And many people talk about, and should talk about, the 1040 window. Over there, the Middle Eastern region, Northern Africa, etc., which has such a high population of closed countries and Islamic influences. But I hope that emphasis doesn't take us away from seeing that a country like Brazil, which has over 200 million people, is still a very spiritually darkened place. And as much as we look at America and see its downfall currently, and it's very sad, we keep up with the American news, it still is spiritually and economically and many other areas light years ahead of a country like Brazil. And you could send 1,000 missionaries just to this one state. And I guarantee you'd still need more if you really want to do a thorough job of evangelism in this country. I mean, it is amazing. I've talked to pastors who can't tell you what the gospel's all about. I know of people who've been in church for years who have no idea where they're going when they die. And yet these people are faithfully in their church, and they take their Bible, and it's just absolute darkness. And when we first arrived, some of the people who started attending our Bible studies, that's how we started, was just going to people's homes and saying, hey, we'll do a Bible study for you if you'd let us. I remember one lady, she told us, she said, when I first met you, started listening to you, what you said was so radically different than what we'd ever heard that we thought you were a false teacher, a false prophet. And I kind of laughed. At that point, I'd already seen her saved and baptized, and she was a member of our church. But when she said that, it really also sort of shocked me, because she never told me that. But then she said, but what we realized is that you were just preaching the Bible, and we didn't have a clue what the Bible was saying. And of course, that's what we found for a lot of these people. And what it's done, the experience here has really filtered my preaching. It is amazing how much we in the United States take for granted the biblical knowledge of even people that have almost no contact with church. They have a sort of morality that's a part of American society that dictates the way they think, that just isn't the case in a country like this. And so I have made it my goal to so push myself to teach and preach only what I can clearly show from the Bible. It has filtered my preaching. There are things that I freely say in the States that no one will bat an eye about, that here in Brazil, they're going to bat an eye. I mean, they've got such a mix of ideas, opinions, doctrines. We've got spiritualism here that uses the Bible to teach reincarnation. And we've got the charismatic movement, we have the prosperity gospel, we have everything you can think of that's in the States, but to a very exaggerated degree. And it is something that has really impacted the way I look at preaching the Bible. And what does the Bible actually say? And as much as I'm an independent, fundamental Baptist, I have to look at exactly my terminology and my emphases to really get across to people what the Bible says. And I've not changed who I am by any stretch. It's actually made me stronger in what I am, but at the same time, it has helped me to make the Bible more clear. And it's neat to see the people in our church, which now has about, I'd say 20 members or so. We're going to be baptizing a few more people here in a couple of weeks. And an attendance that comes up to about 40 people per week. We're seeing that people take a deeper interest in what the Bible says. What does it say? And as opposed to just what does the pastor say, which is a big change for these people, because they just kind of sort of follow their preacher, and whatever he says goes. And it's kind of scary, really, how much you could just become that God figure in their lives because you have some education, and especially in my case, I'm an American English-speaking missionary. I can go freely to the States, and I've got American money and those different things that are really a draw. And so I have to be a very stern, rigid pastor in many senses to sort of shake away the people that just want access to my possibility of getting them into America or getting them American money. We in America, we get frustrated with illegal immigrants. Well, I'm living in a city where many of these people once were illegal immigrants, and they got deported or they got homesick and they came back. It's amazing how many people I've met who have been to America or who know somebody who's in America right now. And so that's the situation, and we're working here. We're planted the church, the Independent Baptist Church. We see God working, but it is a constant struggle. The issues of immorality and unstable lives where faithfulness is not there as far as church services, and especially things like Sunday school. We've got a big battle yet set out here for us, and we're wanting to see this church grow to where it can send out its own missionaries, raise up its own pastoral leadership, start a Bible institute that could maybe come into a Bible college, maybe a Christian school, all these kinds of things. But we've got a world of work ahead of us to see any of that kind of thing take off. And we still are looking at a situation where the people struggle to be faithful to 3 services a week. And we need that out of our own people, because we're not going to find a Bible college. There's no Bible college to draw from in this country. In fact, the largest fundamentalist type institution in this country, I've talked to their leadership, and they said they don't have anybody, and that's telling you something. Whereas in America, we kind of have a wonderful thing that I would call, I got from another guy, called spiritual luxury. Basically, anything you need that has to do with God, the Bible, you can get it somewhere, somehow. It's just not the case in a country like this. And so all of our resources we have to produce in many senses. It's including workers, leadership, literature. That's not to say there's nothing in this country. There certainly is. But it's so different, so vastly different than what we've had in the past in our experience in America, that we're having to rethink the whole thing. And so right now we're pushing on establishing leadership in our church. We've got some men who have made great strides in understanding the Bible, but there are definite things that we're still working on, key areas in their lives. We maintain a Bible study on Monday nights. We have church service twice on Sunday. We have another service on Wednesday night. I go soul winning every Tuesday night, and then I have English class I do on Saturdays, which I've just added or put in an advanced class to the effort on Saturdays. We get definitely new contacts through that. We try to just evangelize people as we go. We really encourage our people not to necessarily do an organized soul winning, though we want to add that eventually to our church, but to just constantly take the opportunity to tell someone about Jesus and to invite to church. And we have visitors all the time coming to our church through that type of an effort. In fact, if you were to take just visitors to our church, if they would all stay with us, which obviously does not happen, our church would have, 200 people or more just from visitors. And we've only been here since 2012, and we haven't had actual church building for people to visit since October of 2014. So we're talking about visitors since we're in the middle of 2017 now. So in 3 years, if everyone would just stay, we would have hundreds of people who visit our church. Of course, we've dealt with even more than that door to door. I couldn't tell you how many people we've actually talked to about Christ and salvation. But we've definitely seen an impact made in the city. It's making inroads, and we're asking you to just continue praying for us. And if you can, visit us. If you can, whatever, let us know. We'd love to have you join us here in this work and be a part of what we're doing here, even if just for a short time. But the Lord bless you all, and thank you for your prayers.